3 months had passed since the terrible meeting at the Galactic Council. Earth had been busy building new factories and training more soldiers, but everyone still felt angry about how the aliens had treated them. Then one morning, everything changed. General Woo-Jin Lee was drinking his morning coffee in his underground command center when the alarms started screaming. Red lights flashed all over the walls and computer screens lit up with warning messages. Captain Min-Ho Choi ran over to his station, with sweat on his face. "Sir, we have a problem," he said in a shaky voice. "Really big ships just appeared at the edge of our solar system. The computers say there are thousands of them." Lee put down his coffee cup and walked to the main screen. The image showed massive alien warships floating in space near Pluto. Each ship was bigger than a city and covered with weapons that glowed with energy. They were council ships. But something was wrong. They were not supposed to be here. "Get me a communication link with the lead ship," Lee ordered. The screen flickered and suddenly Vextar appeared. His insect face looked completely different from 3 months ago. Before he had been proud and nasty. Now he looked scared. His big bug eyes were wide with fear, and his forearms were shaking. "Earth Command. This is war. Admiral Vextar." Vextar said in a voice that cracked like a teenager. "We need your help right now. The Devourers have broken through all our defense lines." Lieutenant Colonel Hansol Bayek stepped forward with a confused look on her face. "Admiral, I thought you said our military was too primitive to be useful. Why are you asking for our help now?" Vextar made a choking sound that the translator could not handle properly. "The situation has changed. These creatures are not like anything we have ever fought before. They eat energy. Our plasma cannons make them bigger and stronger. Our matter destroyers feed them like food. 3 entire star systems have gone completely dark. Major Jiyan Shin pulled up data on her computer and put it on the big screen. The images were horrible. Dark creatures that looked like giant squids were floating through space, but they were bigger than planets. Their tentacles reached out for thousands of miles, grabbing spaceships and crushing them like toys. "How many ships do you have available?" Lee asked. 50,000 vessels with the most advanced technology in the galaxy." Vextar replied. "But nothing works against these things. They absorb our energy, weapons, and grow larger. Every time we shoot them, they become more powerful and more hungry." Young Corporal Hyun-woo Nam had been listening to everything. He was fresh out of military school and still learning how real warfare worked. But he raised his hand like he was still in class. "Sir," he said in a quiet voice, "what if the problem is that they can only eat energy? What if they cannot handle solid things that hit them really hard, like bullets or tank shells?" The whole room went quiet. Everyone stared at the young soldier. Lee felt something click in his mind, like pieces of a puzzle falling into place. "Nam, you might have just figured out how to save the galaxy," he said. "Get me every tank commander on the planet. I want to talk to all of them. Right now, over the next hour." Tank crews from around the world joined the video conference. There was Colonel So-Young from Korea, Captain Bo-Ram Kang from the Armored Division, Master Sergeant Jae-Sung Park, who had commanded tanks for 20 years. They all listened as Lee explained the situation. "The aliens have energy weapons that can destroy planets," he told them. "But these devourer creatures eat energy and grow stronger. So energy weapons actually help the enemy instead of hurting." Captain Kang leaned forward on her screen. "Sir, are you saying that our old-fashioned guns might actually work better than their super-advanced weapons?" Dr. Yun Seo Kim joined the conference from her laboratory. She had been studying the alien data all morning. "The Devourers seem to convert energy into mass." She explained they break down energy attacks and use them to build more body tissue, but kinetic energy might be different. A chunk of metal moving really fast is not the same as a laser beam. Sergeant Park scratched his chin with a thoughtful expression. "Doc, are you telling us that a tank shell might punch right through these things?" "Not just might," Dr. Kim said with excitement. "These creatures have no experience with kinetic weapons. They have fought advanced civilizations that only use energy-based attacks. They probably have no defense against a depleted uranium shell." Moving at high speed, Vextar was still on the communication screen, listening to everything. His compound eyes were moving back and forth as he tried to understand. "You mean your primitive projectile weapons might be effective against an enemy that has destroyed our most advanced battleships. Lee smiled for the first time in months. Admiral, we would like to propose a joint operation. Your ships can transport our tanks to the battle zone. Our tanks can provide close-range fire support using kinetic weapons, while your energy weapons handle anything our guns cannot reach. But Vextar still looked confused. Your tanks are designed to fight on planetary surfaces. How can they operate in space? How can your soldiers breathe? We will figure that out, Lee said. The important thing is that we might have weapons that can actually hurt these creatures. While you were developing energy weapons for millions of years, we kept using projectile weapons because they work. Colonel Young spoke up from her screen. Sir, my tanks are ready to deploy. We have been training for space operations just in case. Give us life support systems and magnetic tracks and we can fight anywhere. Captain Kang nodded in agreement. Our M1 Abrams tanks have 120mm smoothbore cannons that fire depleted uranium rounds. If these devourers cannot handle kinetic energy, then we can hurt them bad. The meeting continued for 2 more hours as they planned the most unusual military operation in history. Alien spaceships would carry human tanks across the galaxy to fight creatures that ate energy. The tanks would use the same basic technology that humans had been using for over a century. As the conference ended, Vextar made one final comment. I want you to know that I am sorry for what I said 3 months ago. Your species deserves respect, and we should have listened to your ideas from the beginning. Lee looked at the alien commander with understanding. We all make mistakes, Admiral. The important thing is that we work together now. These creatures threaten everyone, not just your people or our people. When the screens went dark, Lee turned to his staff. The next few days would be the most important in human history. Either their simple kinetic weapons would save the galaxy, or everyone would die. But at least now they had a chance to prove that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. Nam walked up to his general with a big smile. Sir, do you really think our tanks can beat monsters that destroyed advanced alien civilizations? Lee put his hand on the young soldier's shoulder. Corporal, our tanks have fought. In deserts, jungles, cities, and mountains, space is just another battlefield. And these devourers have never faced anything like an M1 Abrams. Commander Dae-Ho Kim walked into the biggest room he had ever seen in his life. The walls went up so high that clouds formed near the ceiling. Thousands of alien creatures filled the massive space. Some looked like walking trees with glowing eyes. Others floated in the air like jellyfish made of metal. A few creatures were as big as buildings and made of living rock that sparked with electricity. Dae-Ho felt very small standing in the center of the room. His military uniform looked plain next to all the shiny armor and strange clothing the aliens wore behind him. Lieutenant Sujin Park held her tablet tight. Her hands shook a little, but her face stayed calm and serious. Earth had waited 50 years to get invited to join the Galactic Council now. They were finally here, but something felt wrong. The aliens were not treating them like equals. They whispered and pointed at the humans, like they were looking at zoo animals. A creature that looked like a giant insect with 4 arms stepped forward. His name was Vextar, and he was the military leader for the whole galaxy. His bug eyes were bigger than dinner plates, and they reflected light like mirrors. When he talked, his mouth parts clicked together, making scary sounds. So these are the famous humans from Earth, he said in a voice that sounded like metal scraping against stone. The translator machine made his words easy to understand, but could not hide the nasty tone. Tell us, little creatures, what kind of weapons does your tiny planet have? The whole room got quiet, waiting for Dae-Ho to answer. He could feel thousands of alien eyes staring at him. His heart beat fast, but he kept his voice steady. We have many different weapons, sir, tanks that can destroy enemy vehicles, aircraft that control the skies, ships that rule the oceans, infantry weapons for our soldiers. The moment he finished talking, the aliens started making horrible noises. Some buzzed like angry bees, others made sounds like breaking glass. A few roared, so loud that the floor shook. The translator could not handle all the noise at once, but Dae-Ho knew they were laughing at him. Vextar spread all 4 of his arms wide, and his bug eyes got even brighter. Tanks, He repeated like it was the funniest thing he ever heard. You mean those metal boxes that crawl around on the ground like sick animals? We have weapons that can destroy entire star systems from across the galaxy. Your primitive toys are nothing compared to our plasma cannons and matter destroyers. Another alien creature floated over to join the conversation. This one looked like a giant brain covered in purple crystals that pulsed with light. When it talked, the words appeared directly in everyone's minds, instead of coming through the air. Perhaps we should show these humans the difference between real military power and whatever they call warfare. General Wu Jin. Li sat in the front row, watching everything happen. His face was covered with scars from many battles on Earth. He had fought in wars across every continent and led armies through the hardest conflicts in human history. Now he was listening to aliens treat his people like children. With respect, honored delegates, Li said as he stood up slowly. We believe our weapons and tactics have proven very effective in defending our world. This made the aliens laugh even harder. Vextar pointed one of his clawed hands at Li. Your world, he clicked. One tiny planet with one type of weather and land. We have conquered. Worlds made of pure diamond planets that are nothing but gas moons where gravity flows backward instead of down. Your little Earth machines would break apart in 5 minutes on any real battlefield. More aliens joined the conversation. A creature, made of living fire, spoke with a voice like a volcano. Your species has never fought a real war. You have only fought against other humans who use the same weak technology. When you face enemies with plasma weapons and energy shields, your metal toys will melt like ice in summer. The leader of the Galactic Council finally decided to speak. This ancient being looked like liquid silver that had been shaped into a person, but kept moving and changing. The voice was so deep that it made the walls shake and everyone's bones vibrate. Earth will be accepted into the Council as a protected species. The leader announced, you will dig metals from your planet and provide workers while the advanced civilizations handle real matters like war and defense. This meeting is finished. Everyone leave now. As they walked out of the Great Hall, Sujin whispered to her commander, Sir, should we tell them about the real power of our M1 Abrams tanks? The armor thickness, the gun power, the advanced targeting systems. Daeho shook his head with a grim smile on his face. Not yet, Lieutenant. Let them think we are weak and stupid. Sometimes it is much better when your enemies do not know what you can really do. Behind them, they could still hear the aliens laughing and making jokes about human military power. One creature that looked like a metal spider was telling others that human tanks probably could not even hurt a small patrol ship. Another alien that resembled a walking tree was saying that human weapons were so weak they would make good toys for alien children. General Li walked beside them with his hands behind his back. The old soldier had seen this kind of attitude before. Many enemies had looked down on human forces right up until the moment those forces destroyed them. Pride comes before the fall, he said quietly. These aliens are very proud. The three humans made their way through the massive space station that housed the Galactic Council. Everywhere they looked, aliens stared at them and whispered. Some pointed and laughed. Others just shook their heads like they felt sorry for such a primitive species. When they reached their small quarters on the station, Daeho sat down at the simple desk and started writing his report to Earth Command. He wanted to make sure the leaders back home understood exactly what had happened here. Today, the aliens think we are harmless, he wrote. They believe our technology is thousands of years behind theirs. They have weapons that can destroy planets and travel faster than light. They see our tanks and aircraft as ancient relics that belong in a museum. But as he wrote these words, Daeho was thinking about something else. He was thinking about all the wars humans had fought and won against impossible odds. He was thinking about how many times the underdog had surprised everyone by fighting harder and smarter than anyone expected. Sujin sat across from him, cleaning her sidearm. It was a simple projectile weapon that fired metal bullets using chemical explosives. The aliens would probably laugh at this too, since they had energy weapons that could cut through solid rock. But Sujin had used this same type of gun to hit targets over 500 meters away, in all kinds of weather. Maybe the aliens. All right, she said. Maybe our weapons really are primitive compared to theirs. Lee looked up from his own report. His old eyes had a strange light in them. That might be true, Lieutenant. But primitive does not always mean ineffective. Sometimes the old ways work better than the new ways. Sometimes simple is better than complicated, outside their window. The stars looked the same as they did from Earth, but now those stars were full of alien civilizations that thought humans were weak and stupid. They had no idea what kind of enemy they might be creating. News of the human victory spread through the galaxy faster than the speed of light. In star systems that had lost entire planets to the Devourers, alien civilizations suddenly had hope again. More importantly, every alien government wanted to know about these primitive human weapons that could hurt the seemingly invincible enemy. The second major battle took place in the Alpha Centauri system, where long-range scouts had discovered something terrifying. The Devourers had built what appeared to be a massive breeding facility near the fourth planet. From this base, they were creating hundreds of new creatures every day. General Dae-Ho Kim now held the title of Supreme Allied Commander and stood on the bridge of the new flagship Incheon, Victory. The ship had been designed by human and alien engineers working together. It combined practical human military thinking with advanced alien technology. Sir long-range sensors detect over 800 Devourer entities in the system, reported Commander Ari Park. They seem to be protecting something really big near the fourth planet. The computer thinks it might be their queen or mother ship. The attack formation was completely different this time. The alien governments had learned to treat Earth forces as equal partners instead of primitive allies. The human tank battalions were now supported by the best alien ships and equipment. The M1 Abrams tanks had been upgraded with better space drives and more ammunition storage, but their main weapons stayed the same. Colonel Jinsu Quan led the first wave of tanks. His battalion Soul Sabers approached the outer ring of Devourer guards. These creatures had learned to fear the human tanks, but they had no choice except to fight. The survival of their species depended on protecting their breeding facility. Contact front multiple targets, Quan reported over the radio. Engaging now. The battle was more intense than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Devourers fought with desperate fury, because they knew this might be their last chance. But the human tank crews had gained experience and confidence from the first battle. They moved through space like dancers, avoiding the grasping tentacles while pouring kinetic rounds into their enemies. This is Iron Fist Battalion, called Major Hyejin Cha. We have broken through their outer defense line, moving toward the main target now. What they found near the fourth planet made even the bravest tank crews pause in shock. A Devourer the size of Earth-Moon floated in space, surrounded by smaller creatures. The massive mothership was covered in layers of armor that seemed to absorb and redirect energy attacks. It pulsed with power as it continued to create new monsters. "The thing is huge," whispered Private Subin Yoon from her gunner seat. "How do we kill something that big?" "The same way we kill the small ones," Captain Kang replied. "All tanks concentrate fire on target areas that look like weak points. Use armor-piercing rounds, and aim for anything that looks important." 200 M1 Abrams tanks formed a battle line in space and opened fire at the same time. The massive Devourer Queen writhed and screamed as depleted uranium rounds punched through its armor. The creature tried to fight back, sending out energy waves that disabled several alien support ships. But the human tanks were built to operate independently, even when cut off from support. Their crews had trained for situations where communication and backup were not available. They continued fighting even when their radios went dead and their computer systems failed. The queen creature was intelligent enough to realize that energy attacks would not work against the tanks. Instead, it tried to grab them, with physical tentacles, some of which were thousands of kilometers long. But the tank crews had learned how to fight in 3 dimensions. They used their rocket engines to stay mobile while their gunners found weak spots in the creatures. Armor Sergeant First Class Kyung Ho Min had been aiming at what looked like a nerve cluster near the creature's head. His tank had been modified with extra ammunition storage, and his crew had been practicing rapid-fire techniques. Target acquired. He called to his gunner, range 8,000 meters. "This looks like the money shot." His tank cannon fired, and the depleted uranium shell punched through the creature's skull and into what appeared to be its brain. The massive Devourer Queen shuddered once, then began to collapse. In on itself like a deflating balloon, target destroyed, Min reported. The big one is down with their mothership dead. The remaining Devourers seemed to lose all coordination. They scattered throughout the system like frightened animals. Some tried to escape into hyperspace while others just floated aimlessly. The combined human and alien forces hunted down the survivors over the next several days. The victory was so complete that it surprised even the human commanders. The creatures that had terrorized the galaxy for months were now running away whenever they detected human tank signatures on their sensors. Fear of Earth, kinetic weapons spread through the Devourer species faster than any disease. Captain Kang stood on the observation deck of her transport ship watching the cleanup operations. Alien salvage crews were collecting the remains of destroyed Devourers, while human engineers studied the wreckage to learn more about the enemy. "We actually did it," she said to Lieutenant Park. "We saved the galaxy with tanks that were designed to fight on Earth." Park nodded, but her expression was thoughtful. "The question is what happens now. The aliens know that our weapons work, but they also know that we are not as primitive as they thought." Over the following weeks, the remaining Devourer strongholds fell one by one. The creatures had no defense against kinetic weapons, and their previous advantages meant nothing against enemies who could not be absorbed or converted. Human tank crews became heroes throughout the galaxy. Young Corporal Nam had been promoted to sergeant after his idea had started the whole campaign. He stood in the command center watching reports come in from across the galaxy. Every day brought news of another Devourer defeat, sir, he said to General Kim. "Do you think they will ever come back?" Kim looked at the tactical displays showing clear space where Devourer fleets used to lurk. "I do not think so, Sergeant. These creatures are intelligent enough to learn from their mistakes. They know now that this galaxy has weapons they cannot handle. The final battle took place in a system so far from Earth that the light from home would take 5,000 years to reach it. A group of Devourers had tried to establish a new base, but human tank battalions supported by alien fleets surrounded them completely. The creatures surrendered without fighting. It was the first time in galactic history that Devourers had given up instead of fighting to the death. The message was clear: they were more afraid of human weapons than they were of dying. Colonel Bayek accepted the surrender on behalf of the Allied forces. The surviving Devourers were relocated to an empty system far from any inhabited worlds where they could live without threatening other species. It was a mercy that the creatures had never shown their victims. As the war ended, General Lee stood in his office looking at reports from across the galaxy. The Devourers had been completely defeated. 3 star systems had been liberated and were being recolonized. The threat that had terrorized advanced civilizations was now just a bad memory. A message arrived from the Galactic Council requesting another meeting. But this time, they wanted to hold it on Earth in a facility that would be built to human specifications. The aliens who had once mocked human military power now wanted to learn everything they could about kinetic weapons and tank warfare. The war was over, and humanity had not just survived but had earned their place as equals among the stars. The M1 Abrams tanks that had been designed to fight on the battlefields of Earth had become the weapons that brought peace to the entire galaxy. 6 months after the first Devourer attack, the Galactic Council reconvened, but this time the meeting was held on Earth, in a specially constructed facility in neutral Switzerland. The chamber was smaller, more intimate, and humans sat as equals among the alien delegates. Vextar, his pride long since swallowed, stood before the assembly. "The final Devourer stronghold has been eliminated. 3 star systems have been liberated and are being recolonized. The threat that terrorized the galaxy for months has been completely destroyed." He paused, his compound eyes focusing on General Lee. This victory was achieved primarily through the tactical brilliance and technological effectiveness of Earth's military forces. Specifically, their M1 Abrams main battle tanks proved to be the perfect weapon against an enemy that our most advanced technology could not touch. The Council's leader, the flowing metal being, rippled with what might have been embarrassment. "We owe Earth a formal apology. Our assessment of human military capabilities was incomplete." Dr. Yonseo Kim stood to address the assembly. Honored delegates, the lesson here isn't that kinetic weapons are superior to energy weapons. The lesson is that diversity in thinking and approach makes us all stronger. You had weapons that could destroy planets, but you all thought the same way. We had different weapons and different ideas. Young Captain Nam, now promoted to Major, raised his hand. If I may, sir, I think there's something else important here. The Devourers were so advanced that they had defenses against the most sophisticated weapons in the galaxy. But they had no defense against simple, old-fashioned kinetic projectiles, because they never expected to face them. The alien delegates buzzed and clicked and hummed in their various languages, but the translation made their meaning clear. They were impressed. Vextar clicked his mandibles in what had become a gesture of respect. Earth will be granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all rights and privileges. Your military expertise will be integrated into our defense forces, and your M1 Abrams tanks will be studied and reproduced for system defense forces across the galaxy. General Lee smiled. We're honored to serve alongside you. But I have one request. Name it, replied the council leader. Next time someone joins the council, maybe don't assume their technology is primitive just because it's different. Sometimes the old ways work better than the new ones. The chamber filled with the sounds of alien laughter, but this time they were laughing with humanity, not at them. Earth's tanks had not only saved the galaxy, they had earned humanity's place as equals among the stars. The M1 Abrams, designed to fight on the battlefields of Earth, had become the weapon that brought peace to the galaxy. In the end, the Galactic Council learned that sometimes the most advanced solution isn't the most complicated one. Sometimes you just need a big gun that shoots very hard. The combined fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, and everyone who saw what waited there felt their hearts stop. The system had once been home to 3 beautiful planets and dozens of mining stations. Now it was a nightmare that belonged in the worst horror movie ever made. Captain Kang Ho Lee stood in the observation deck of the transport ship Soul Pride, looking through the armored windows at something that should not exist. The Devourers were everywhere. Creatures the size of mountains floated through space on tentacles that stretched for thousands of kilometers. Their bodies were black as night and covered with what looked like mouths full of glowing teeth. Sir, these things are huge, whispered Navigator Yu Jin Cho. The scanner says some of them are bigger than our transport ships. How are we supposed to fight something that size? In the cargo bay, 50 M1 Abrams tanks were secured to the floor with magnetic clamps. The crews had been checking their equipment for hours, making sure everything was ready. Captain Lee climbed down to his tank iron dragon and patted the main gun barrel like it was an old friend. You have never let me down before, he said to the weapon. Now let us see if you can hurt a space monster. The alien fleet moved into attack formation first. Their commander wanted to try energy weapons one more time, even though everyone knew it would not work. Massive battleships that were 3 kilometers long fired plasma cannons that could melt asteroids. The beams reached across space and struck the nearest Devourers. Instead of being destroyed, the creatures seemed to enjoy the attack. They grew larger and brighter as they absorbed the energy. Their tentacles reached out toward the fleet like they were hungry for more. The space around them rippled with power as they converted the plasma into body mass energy weapons ineffective. Vextar reported over the communication system. His voice sounded tired and defeated. They are growing stronger and moving toward us. Request immediate support from Earth forces. General Lee voice came over the radio from the command ship. Earth forces, this is your battle now. Show these creatures what human weapons can do. The cargo bays of the transport ships opened, and something that had never happened before in galactic history began to occur. Hundreds of M1 Abrams tanks fired their rocket engines and shot out into space like bullets. Their magnetic treads extended and locked into combat position. The crews inside breathed recycled air and trusted their armor to protect them from the vacuum staff. Sergeant Mi Jung. Song was the first to acquire a target range 15,000 meters, she called over the radio. Loading armor, piercing sabot. Round the space around the mining colony lit up like the 4th of July, as hundreds of tank cannons fired at the same time. The muzzle flashes were bright enough to see from the other side of the system. Depleted uranium shells streaked through space at incredible speed. For the first time since the war began, the Devourers screamed. The sound somehow carried through the vacuum of space and made every living creature who heard it feel sick with terror, where the energy weapons had made them. Stronger, the kinetic rounds tore massive holes through their bodies. Black liquid sprayed into space as the creatures writhed in pain and confusion. Direct hit on target, Alpha 7 reported Corporal Subin Yoon from her gunner position. That thing is definitely hurt. Sir, keep firing. Captain Kang ordered over the tank communication net reload with high explosive and target the wounded ones. These monsters picked the wrong fight. The Devourers tried to adapt to this new threat. They sent out energy, tentacles to grab the tanks, but the M1 Abrams were built for speed and maneuverability. The crews fired their rocket engines and dodged between the grasping appendages while continuing to pour shells into the alien creatures. Private Jun-Ho Kim was driving his tank Mountain Tiger when a tentacle the size of a subway train tried to wrap around him. He pulled the tank into a sharp turn that would have been impossible on Earth and fired his main gun point blank into what looked like the creature's head scratch one ugly space monster. He yelled over the radio as the Devourer collapsed in on itself. The battle was like nothing anyone had ever seen before. Tanks that had been designed to fight on the plains of Europe were now dancing. Through space shooting at creatures from another dimension, the human crews worked with precision that came from years of training, while the alien creatures flailed around in confusion. Tank Commander Captain Bo Ram Kang found herself surrounded by 3 smaller Devourers, each one the size of a football stadium. Her gunner Private Dong Hyun Ryu loaded round after round as fast as he could while she maneuvered between their attacks. Target left, she called out. High explosive loaded, on the way, Ryu replied. The tank shook as the shell left the barrel and exploded inside one of the creatures. The Devourers had never faced weapons like this before. Energy attacks they could absorb and use to grow stronger. But chunks of depleted uranium, moving at supersonic speed, were something completely different. The shells punched through their bodies like bullets through paper. Lieutenant Colonel Han Sol-baek coordinated the attack from her command tank. All units concentrate fire on the large ones, she ordered over the radio. The small ones will die when we kill their big brothers. The largest Devourer in the system was the size of a small moon. It had been absorbing energy from the alien weapons and growing stronger by the minute. But when 50 tank shells hit it at the same time, it let out a scream that shattered asteroids. The creature began to collapse as its body could not handle the kinetic damage. Master Sergeant Jae-sung Park had been fighting in tanks for 20 years, but he had never seen anything like this. His crew worked like a machine, loading and firing as fast as the equipment would allow. They had been trained to fight other tanks. Not space monsters, but the principles were the same. Find the target, shoot. The target, kill the target, he said to his crew as they engaged another Devourer. It does not matter if the enemy is a tank or a space monster. Dead is dead. Within 2 hours, the remaining Devourers were retreating deeper into the system. The ones that could still move dragged their wounded companions away from the human tanks. The space around the mining colony was filled with floating debris and black liquid from the destroyed creatures. The alien fleet watched in complete silence as Earth primitive tanks had accomplished what their most advanced weapons could not do. The creatures that had seemed invincible were running away from human technology that was older than some of the aliens in the fleet. Vextar voice came over the communication system, but now it was filled with respect and wonder. Earth forces, this is Admiral Vextar. Your attack was successful. Enemy forces are in full retreat. Casualties minimal. Well done. Captain Lee looked through his periscope at the retreating monsters and smiled. These things have been destroying civilizations for months, he said to his crew, but they never fought humans before. They just learned that some lessons are taught with tank shells. The first battle against the Devourers was over and humanity had won. But everyone knew this was just the beginning. The creatures would adapt and return with new tactics. But now the galaxy knew that the monsters could be hurt and killed, and they knew that Earth's simple kinetic weapons were the key to victory. The whole world changed overnight. Factories that made cars suddenly started making tanks instead. Assembly lines that built computers began producing ammunition. Workers who had never seen military equipment were learning how to build the weapons that might save the galaxy. In Busan, Korea, Colonel So Young-jung watched hundreds of M1 Abrams tanks roll off the production lines. The 70-ton war machines looked exactly the same as they always had, but now they carried the hopes of every living creature in the galaxy. Giant cranes lifted the tanks and loaded them into spaceships that had been modified with life support systems. The modifications are complete, reported Sergeant Taejin, Oak. His coveralls were covered with oil and grease. From working on the tanks for 3 straight days, the alien engineers gave us atmospheric processors and gravity generators. Everything is ready for space combat. The tanks looked strange with their new equipment. Each one now had sealed crew compartments with oxygen recycling systems. The treads had been replaced with magnetic clamps that could grip metal surfaces in zero gravity. But the most important part stayed the same: the 120mm cannon that could punch holes through almost anything. At the training center outside, Sol tank crews practiced in computer simulators that recreated alien worlds. Some planets had gravity that was 10 times stronger than Earth. Others had almost no gravity at all. A few worlds were covered in methane ice that would freeze a human solid in seconds. Captain Bo-Ram Kang climbed out of her simulator pod and wiped sweat from her forehead. "The low-gravity worlds are going to be interesting," she told her gunner, Private Dong-Hyun Ryu. "But the main gun works the same way no matter where we are. Point and shoot." The alien scientists had been studying human weapons for weeks. They could not believe that such simple technology might be effective. Dr. Yonseo. Kim worked with them in her laboratory trying to understand exactly how the Devourers absorbed energy. "The creatures are basically living energy converters," she explained to a room full of tank commanders. "They break down plasma beams and laser attacks into pure energy, then use that energy to grow bigger and reproduce. But they seem to have no way to handle solid matter moving at high velocity." Master Sergeant Jae-Sung Park raised his hand. "Doc, are you saying that our regular tank shells will work against these monsters? Not just work." Dr. Kim smiled. "They might be the only things in the galaxy that will work. Energy weapons feed the creatures, but a depleted uranium round moving at 1,700 meters per second is just going to punch a hole right through them." The preparation was not just about tanks. Every human soldier was learning how to fight in space. Breathing masks, life support packs, magnetic boots, everything they needed to survive in the vacuum between stars. Meanwhile, alien engineers were building transport ships that could carry the tanks safely across the galaxy. Lieutenant Sujin Park supervised the loading of ammunition. Each tank would carry twice as many shells as normal, because nobody knew how long the battle would last. The depleted uranium rounds were loaded first, since they would be the main weapon against the Devourers. Then came high-explosive shells for any smaller targets. In the command center, General Lee met with alien military leaders for the first time as equals, instead of as inferiors. The holographic star map showed the locations where the Devourers had been seen. Most were near the outer rim of the galaxy where fewer civilizations lived. "The plan is simple," Lee explained, pointing to the map. "Your ships will transport our tanks to the battle zones. The tanks will engage the Devourers with kinetic weapons while your energy weapons provide support against any targets that our guns cannot handle." Vextar looked at the human general with new respect. "General Lee, I want you to know that every alien commander in this room has studied the specifications of your M1 Abrams tanks. We are amazed that such old technology might be so effective. The tanks are not old technology," Colonel Hansol Bayek corrected. "They are proven technology. We have been improving and upgrading them for decades. They have fought in every type of terrain and climate on Earth. Now we will find out how they perform in space." The War Council meeting continued for hours as they planned every detail of the operation. The II alien ships would provide life support and navigation while the human tanks would do the actual fighting. It was a partnership that nobody had expected, but everyone now needed. Meanwhile, across Earth, families said goodbye to tank crews who might never come home. The mission was dangerous and nobody knew if the plan would actually work. But the crews were eager to prove that human weapons could succeed, where alien technology had failed. Corporal Hyun Woo Nam packed his personal belongings. In his tank, his crew had trained together for years and they trusted each other completely. Driver Subin Yoon could make their tank dance across any battlefield. Gunner Jun-Ho Kim could hit targets that others could not even see. "Are you scared?" Yoon asked as they ran final checks on their systems. A little Nam admitted, but mostly I am excited. We get to be the first humans to fight aliens in space. How many people can say that? The alien transport ships were ready. Each one could carry 50 M1 Abrams tanks along with their crews and supplies. The ships had been modified with magnetic clamps to hold the tanks secure during hyperspace travel. Nobody was sure if human equipment would survive the journey, but they had to try. Dr. Kim gave a final briefing to all the tank crews. Remember that these creatures have never faced kinetic weapons before. They might try to grab your tanks with their tentacles, but your armor should protect you. Keep moving and keep shooting. Do not let them surround you as the first transport ships prepared to leave Earth. Millions of people gathered to watch the tanks rolled up ramps into the alien vessels while news cameras broadcast everything live. This was either the beginning of humanity, greatest victory, or the start of their final defeat. General Lee stood on the observation deck watching the last tanks being loaded. His old friend Vex Tar stood beside him. The alien commander had changed completely from the arrogant creature who had mocked Earth 3 months ago. General Lee Vex Tar said quietly, "I hope you know that if your plan works, you will have saved not just the galaxy, but also our pride. We should have listened to your people from the beginning." Lee nodded, without looking at the alien. "Sometimes the best solutions are the simplest ones. Your people spent millions of years developing energy weapons because they worked against every enemy you faced. But these devourers are different. They require a different approach." The transport ships began lifting off from Earth carrying their precious cargo of tanks and crews. Soon they would enter hyperspace and travel across the galaxy to face an enemy that had destroyed advanced civilizations, but the tanks and their crews were ready as the ships disappeared into space. Captain Kang sent a final message back to Earth. "This is Iron Dragon Battalion. We are ready for battle. These creatures picked the wrong galaxy to invade. See you when we get back."